will get them started.
You know, when you're that young and you're just starting out, I mean, let's just think about everybody, right? You know, for the most part, most 20-something-year-olds that are just starting out are probably still living at home.
It protects your interest in the business, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your own individual life insurance separate from the business. Is that correct?
Yeah, generally yes, there's personal planning and business planning, and people fail to do both, right? And they're not mutually exclusive of one another, right?
What's up, my people? Today we're talking about what is your most valuable asset. And I think you'll be interested to learn that it's not what you think. Right, Raf?
It is not. Where's everybody at,
Yo,
man?
we're missing a few people today.
These dudes choose to leave on one of the gloomiest days we've had in a long time in New York City.
Right now it's raining like crazy, and these guys are chilling on the beach. So I have to say I'm a little envious.
They're the smart ones.
True.
They're the smart ones.
I know, right? But we have a very, very exciting guest. I'm excited about this guest. I'll let Raf introduce him, but hopefully you guys are excited to have him as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the most valuable asset is not what you think it is. And the guest we're having today is not only a dear friend of mine. I think we made our bones in the industry coming up together, right?
Yeah.
But he's probably one of the most brilliant financial minds that you're gonna know, because not only will he teach you how to protect what you already have, but he also knows how to nurture and grow. So ultimately, seeing his growth throughout the last 15 or so years has been pretty impressive, because the man never stops learning. And I always choose to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. So
I love to hear it.
Without much ado, here,
He
Jeff.
set the bar high.
Velastiki.
Now the pressure's on. So
Okay.
So yeah, Jeff Velastiki, one of the only member of the Legacy Group out there in beautiful Long Island. I mean, he's got a vast array of clients. I count myself as a client of his, but he's got some clients that are just unbelievable. And again, you know, I do a lot of learning from him. So he's going to explain to us today not only how he helps his clients that are starting off, but also his very wealthy clients from infancy up to wealth preservation. So Jeff, the floor is yours, my man.
Thank you, guys. I
Welcome.
really appreciate
Welcome to
having
the
me.
show, man. Love to have you.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And not only that, but the man traveled, right? You said you were on a flight from
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Greenville.
Check this out. You were running late, right?
Yes.
You were going to cancel on us.
I was never planning on canceling.
He told the pilot, he was like, yo, push it to the limit.
Yeah,
I gotta make it there.
They took off an hour late, and he still made it here on time. That is impressive, my man.
God is good.
That is very impressive.
Yes,
All the
thank
time.
you, all the time.
So yeah. So tell us, man. Tell us about the man, the myth, the legend.
Well, thank you guys for having me. You know, it's been I've known Rafael for a long time. You know, about 20 or so. Actually, we've known each other for about 18 years. I've been in the industry for 23.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Time flies when you're having fun, and you know,
yeah.
it's always been a learning experience. You know,
Nice.
I was very fortunate early in my career to have good mentors. You know, I didn't invent the wheel. I just happened to learn about a lot of good, important, you know, aspects of planning through some of the people that I worked with over the years. And, you know, I was very fortunate to have an opportunity right before COVID to, you know, start my own, you know, firm and have a great team of guys who we collaborate with. You know, I've always say I'm not looking for employees, I'm looking for partners, right?
Okay.
And that's really my mentality. My mentality with the guys that I work with. You know, we all have different specialties, and the idea is to serve the people we work for. You know, our clients, and whether it's young families starting out or somebody who's got $100 million to protect. There's sound financial planning that every person has to do. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have $1 in your bank account or 100 million in your bank account. You're still putting on your pants the same way, one leg at a time. So as you begin your journey, right, in financial planning, and at least I describe it as a journey, you know, I think that, you know, financial planning for most people is a scary, taboo conversation, right? And it's for a variety of reasons. The truth around planning in general doesn't necessarily have to be financial, is that in order to achieve long-term goals, you have to make commitments and sacrifice. And those commitments and sacrifices are very hard for people to make, right? So the approach we take at the Legacy Group is one that is we make it a journey, you know, because planning is about making it a journey. Let me ask you guys a question. When was the last time somebody asked you, you know, what are your most important financial objectives, dreams, and aspirations? Just think about that. Don't give me an answer.
The last time, 5 seconds ago.
Well, other than right? No, but
I get what you mean. Yeah.
But when was the last time you actually sat down to plan for that?
Me personally,
Well, you're in the business, so it's a little bit
yeah. I was
difficult,
just,
right?
yeah, but I get what you mean.
But
Yeah.
for our
Most
audience,
people,
right?
For most people, yeah.
For most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning for their future plan goals and
I
and
couldn't agree
objectives.
with you more.
I can't tell you how many people tell me, "Oh, I'm going to Bermuda. Well, I'm going here. I'm going to Puerto Rico." And
Mhm.
it's awesome. I love it. Because you should definitely enjoy life, and
Mhm.
everybody works hard, right? But people fail to spend the necessary time to do that.
So let's start from the beginning, right? Because
Right.
we have an audience that's pretty diverse.
Mhm.
We have some business owners that we've had on who obviously require a little bit more detailed planning, and then we have some folks that are just starting out, right? Let's just make this up. Let's say you're 23 years old, 24 years old, just graduated college. You meet a young man. What are the or young woman?
Young man or
'cause I got
woman.
my daughters over there sitting, and I'll be happy to refer them.
We
to
got
you
an
when they're
audience
ready.
today.
So how do you advise someone who's 23, 24 years old is not thinking about retirement? They're not thinking about their future. Like, how do you
How do we get them
persuade them?
started?
How do you
Yeah.
get them started?
When you're that young and you're just starting out, I mean, let's just think about everybody, right? For the most part, most 20-something-year-olds that are just starting out are probably still living at home, right? The best advice I give those people is save money. Save, right? And that's a hard thing to do for a lot of people,
Mhm.
right? Because the majority of people, they make money, they spend first, they
Mhm.
pay taxes, and save what's left. Where it should be save first, pay your taxes, save first, and spend what's left, right? There's a formula, right? Everybody, conventional wisdom tells you, hey, 10% is what you should be saving, but that's old information. That's not, 10% is good, but you should be spending, or you should be saving, an average of 15 to 20% of your gross income over the course of 25 to 30 years to achieve what we call financial independence.
Okay.
So, but
So
saving
15 to 20%.
That's the
saving's
goal.
not sexy though,
Yeah.
right? Saving's not sexy, right?
Saving
Like,
or investing.
yes,
okay?
no, it's not.
So when you say saving, do you
Yeah.
mean like saving it and putting it under your mattress, saving it, putting it in an investment portfolio? Where should they consider saving that?
Yes, and yes, right?
Okay.
Because why do we save? We save to achieve future goals, right? So as a young individual in your 20s, what's everybody's primary goal? Buy a home, right? And while that might be, true for maybe 80% of people, maybe other people are just saving money to start a business. So depending on how long you have to invest, right? Because it's all about time.
Mhm.
When people come to me and say, "Hey, I have a, 100,000 or $1 million to invest," my first question is, "Well, when will we need the money by?" Right? That's the first question. So if you say to me, "Hey, I want to buy a home in the next 18 months or 24 months," that's short term.
Mhm.
So that's not money you're putting in the market. That's not money you're putting anywhere where there's any risk that A, it might be worth less than what you started with, or B, that you can't take the money out because it's a
Certain commitment.
exactly right. So again, timing of when you will need the money is going to be super important, right?
Okay.
So that answers the question. Now, if you tell me, "Hey, look, I'm not really worried about you know buying a house because my parents are giving me one. I'm not really worried about starting a business. I'm really just saving for the sake of saving." Then yeah, if you have if your timing is a little longer, 3, 5, 10 years, then you can start thinking about other things, right? You can start thinking about securities, bonds. Today we live in a world where you can actually go to the bank and get a decent yield without taking zero risk. You can go to the bank and get 5.5% on a CD,
Okay.
right? We prior to the last 12
Or
to
money
18
market.
or money market.
I did 5.3%.
Yeah, money market. Yeah,
like easy, like
Yeah, you go to American Express high yield accounts, or
Mhm.
and there's a lot of online companies you can do that with, and so that's phenomenal. So for the listeners that haven't been around for long, just know that we're in a really good time to take advantage of a high interest rate environment. So you hear everybody saying, "Oh, interest rate is high and
Mhm.
so bad." Well, it's not bad for everyone. It's bad for the people that are leveraged or over leveraged, but
Okay.
for the average individual who's in their 20s and 30s who just have 20, 30, 40, $50,000 to invest, yeah, 6% is great, 5% is great, and it's liquid.
Okay.
Liquidity is king, so young individuals need to really, it all starts with asking the question, what are your goals, what are your dreams, what are your aspirations?
Okay. Goals,
So
Right.
dreams, and
so
aspirations.
basically,
Okay.
what you're saying is that time is your best friend
Yes.
when it comes to generating long-term wealth, right?
Yes.
Someone who has 30 years, 40 years to invest and to accumulate real assets has a very distinct advantage over someone who has 10 years left to retire,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, correct. And look, and the problem with super young individuals in their 20s, right? They don't know what they don't know,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So maybe, and look, and I apologize for the 20-year-olds who are listeners. A 25-year-old is in a different place than a 30-year-old. I mean,
Mhm.
think about it for yourselves. What's your relationship with money today like? Think about that.
It's very different than it was in my
5 years ago.
20s.
Well,
Yeah,
even
yeah, you're
5 years
right.
ago.
Even 5 years ago,
If you
absolutely.
if
Yeah.
you think about your relationship with money backwards, right?
Mhm.
What was it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Mhm.
It's much different than it is
Oh,
today.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it kind of goes back to the if I knew then what I know now kind of thing, right? It's a
You hear that
cliche, but
every
it's
day. It is a
true.
cliche, but
But
it is
it's
one of those
true.
things that
Yeah.
can be very true.
So one of the things that I've learned over the 23 years I've been doing this is understanding and putting myself in the shoes of those people that we work with, right? Again, whether they're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. And Raphael said it, I have clients that are worth over 200, $300 million, and I have clients who are just starting out,
Okay.
right? And my team and our approach is, it doesn't change because it's about them. It's not about what hot product or what high yield or investing their money and I can get you 10% or 15%. Anybody can do that. Shit, you don't even need, you know, an advisor to, just go and invest money, right? Because it's so easy to do it now.
Yeah.
And that's why I like Jeff, because like he works with a diverse background of clients. And again, you can learn a lot as a young man from someone who has already accomplished major things economically and financially with their life. And these are things that you can potentially deploy in the future, right?
Yeah,
Josh.
sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
so all right, cool. What do you got, Josh?
So we started talking about like what's your most valuable asset, right? And we spoke about that. I'm kind of giving a little bit of behind the scenes, right? We spoke a little bit about before the show, like what's your most valuable asset. I want to talk more about that specifically because I don't think enough people know what their most valuable asset is
Yeah.
and how to protect it.
Right.
Right. So let's get into that.
So yeah, so look, I think that's a very important question to ask, and that's one that we ask often, amongst ourselves, right? When we meet people, again, we always start with how can we help, right? You ever go into a store, a Best Buy or a PC Richard and Son, so anywhere that let's say you wanted to buy a TV, right? And I've been there, you've been there, I think, right? You go
Mhm.
in there, you want to go buy a TV, you need a TV, and the sales guy comes in and says, "Can I help you with something?" Right? What is your immediate reaction? No
Good,
thanks.
just looking.
Yeah, no thanks. I'm looking. I'm just looking.
yeah.
Right. Everybody does it. I do it. You know why?
Mhm.
You know why? Because that's your self-conscious telling you, hey, I don't want to be sold. Right? Same thing with everything we do. Okay. So especially with financial planning. So for us, it's never about, you know, how can I help you? It's really more, tell me about you. Tell me about what you need to accomplish or what you want to accomplish. So we approach it a very similar way that we're doing it here, right? Conversational, never putting the client in a situation where they feel threatened or they feel pressured, right? Because at the end of the day, what I've learned in the 23 years I've been doing this is if you just listen and you ask the right questions, the client will tell you what they need. Our
But-
job is very easy.
But what's
Okay.
what's all right? So you meet someone. What would you say, right?
Mhm.
In your diverse, no matter who you are, you said everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. What would you say is someone's most valuable asset? And it's not what you think it is.
No, it's not. So the most valuable asset, in my opinion, right, is is their ability to earn an income or a living, right? Because if you think about it, right? Let's pretend for a moment that that you have a machine in your basement where every day you go and push a button, that machine just spits out $1,000 a day,
I like that machine.
right? Just
That's a
right, you like
machine.
that machine, right? Let-
My
wh-
fingers would get really
Right,
tired.
Right. Yeah. No, but it only works. Listen, it only gives you the same amount every day. Maybe you get lucky, you get a bonus distribution,
Okay.
every now and then. But let's just pretend for a moment. Let's pretend you have that machine. Let's
Okay.
pretend that's real.
Yeah.
Like, would that be considered a valuable asset to you?
Yeah, no one would come near that
Absolutely.
machine. I'm
And,
pretty
and
sure
what
that
would
machine
happen
is
if that
protected.
machine breaks? Like, let's say
Ooh.
that one of the components inside that machine breaks.
The button broke.
The button broke.
Yeah, like would you want to call someone to fix that
I
button?
would want that button or that machine fixed immediately.
Yeah. So what if somebody came and stole that machine from you? Would you want to maybe replace that machine?
Absolutely.
worse.
Okay. Well, think about yourselves as that machine, right? Because
Mm.
every day you wake up, put your pants on, you take a shower, you clean up, get prepared for the day.
Hope.
You go out because we're all money making machines,
Mhm.
right? So people fail to recognize that their most valuable asset is to their ability to earn a living and make money. So where am I getting with that, right? At some point in a young individual's life, when they start going from, college to getting their first job and maybe, moving out on their own and being independent, and, let's even pretend like, now you're at that stage where you're, engaged to get married. You start making decisions where you become responsible for other than yourself, for other people other than
Other
yourself.
people, yeah.
Yeah, and that responsibility comes with, those fears at the back of my mind, right? I want to make sure that if something happens to that machine, right,
Me, yeah, you.
that person I made a commitment to, right, maybe the kids, if I have some, right, that machine continues to provide. So that's why I say, right, that your income or your ability to make an income is your most valuable asset. Because I'll give you another one, right? I'll take it a different perspective. Let's say we all do the right things. We sit down, we do the planning, and we talk about what you want to accomplish in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, right? Let's say you have the plan and you start executing towards the plan and you start saving towards that plan. Again, I ask the question, what happens if that machine breaks? All those plans, whether they're 5, 10, 15 years down the road, those plans go bye-bye because that machine broke.
All right. So clearly, we need to protect this machine.
Yeah.
You have to
Right.
protect the machine.
However it is that you earn your living.
Right.
Obviously, that's a
and-
critical
and-
piece of the puzzle, right?
And it really doesn't matter how you earn a living as long as it's done,
As long as- yeah.
legally, right?
Now, what are some
So-
ways? So, what are some ways that you would suggest, right? Ideally, some affordable ways to ensure that the machine
Yeah.
keeps running.
So there are two very
according.
basic, the two basic components on protecting your income
Okay.
is through life insurance, right? Because life insurance, for those people that don't know, is
I
I have to clap to
You
that.
sell
He
insurance,
loves
right?
life
Well,
insurance.
all kidding aside, and I apologize for cutting you off. I don't think enough people in our communities, right, have a clear understanding of life insurance
yeah.
and the importance and the role that it plays in life. So I'm sorry for cutting you off, but please continue.
Yeah, no. So life insurance is one of the components to help protect your ability to make a living, right? So and the life insurance conversation.
So explain. So let's just take it back a little bit, right?
Sure.
So again, just make sure that let's make believe that person doesn't know what life insurance is.
Yeah, so
Explain, yeah.
So life insurance in the most basic form is a policy you buy, right? So that if God forbid something happens, like you go to work today and God forbid you don't make it back, right? Because you got into an accident, got a heart attack,
forbid.
whatever, God forbid.
Heaven forbid. Yeah.
That policy will replace your income, right? Now the question is, well, how much life insurance you need, right? And obviously, if you buy $100,000 policy and you make $100,000, then you're replacing 1 year of your income, right? So there's a way to back into that, right? There's a lot, people use formulas, they use calculators. I don't love any of that stuff because it's a little too confusing. It's not as personal. I like to make this into a journey, right? So when we talk about insurance, we don't really talk about insurance. Okay, I've never sold life insurance before. right? Because what I like to talk about is tell me what your family needs, right? So I walk them through an exercise where, you know, we talk about the unthinkable, right? Something happens, right? So we like to do a few things. We know for a fact that there are three things that are like most critical to families that lose a loved one.
Okay.
Kids. You think about your kids,
Mhm.
right? I have two kids, Nico and Bella, 10 and 8. And
Oh,
but
yeah.
my
God
life,
bless.
my life changed when those two came into the world. So, and I had this mentality before they were born. So, I've been doing this for a long time. But think about it. The three biggest fears that kids have is losing a parent,
Mhm.
losing your home, or losing a friend, right? So I ask often the question is, well, if God forbid you didn't come back home tonight, what are the things that you would want to secure, right? And 95% of the people we talk to say, well, I want to make sure my debt is paid off, my home,
Mhm.
and their mortgages is usually the biggest, debt that they have, right? And then the next logical question is, the way I approach it is, well, what type of lifestyle would you like to provide for your family, right? So let's just say, you're an average, family making 250, 300,000 a year, both working, husband and wife,
Mhm.
and one of you goes missing, right? What lifestyle would you want the surviving spouse and your children to have, right? It has nothing to do with the amount of insurance yet,
Mhm.
because all we're talking about is, hey, do I want to keep my family in the same lifestyle, or do I want the lifestyle to go away, right? Because I'll paint an even a even grimmer picture, right? So
Oh God, I'm already depressed, Josh.
yeah, you should be. So I'll use my
Nah, I'm
life
just
as an
listening.
example.
Okay.
If something happened to my wife, right, I
God
couldn't
forbid.
do.
Pam is a nice lady.
Pam is a nice woman. She's the best thing that ever happened to us. Me.
100%.
Something happened to her. There's zero chance that I get to do what I do for a living as well as I do it, and how I do it. To be able to take a trip to North Carolina, Georgia, wherever the hell that I travel to. So for her to be home, right? And she's my operations manager at work. She helps, the kids
Oh.
home, and she does her her missing, my life stops, even though she's the one that's gone, right? And the other way
Mhm.
around, if I'm gone, right, and our company, and it's our company because she helped me establish it, and but if I'm gone, I'm the one that makes the money, but she supports it, right? So
Mhm.
I see it as a symbiotic relationship. It's not, so I always go to, how is my life impacted if either one of us has gone missing,
Yeah,
right?
no, it's huge.
Fair enough.
So and the question again goes back to, what type of lifestyle do you want to provide? Because it has nothing to do with how much insurance I need, but rather it's just pen and paper. So the number we use, right, or the formula we use is, we want your youngest child to make it at least through college, right? At a minimum, that is what I strive for with my clients, right? Because a lot of people, when I ask them the question, what type of lifestyle do you want your family to have? They have no idea how to answer it,
Mm.
right? The answer, I'll give you the answer, right? I'll give you the question, I'll give you the answer. The answer is, most people say, I want the same
The
lifestyle.
same lifestyle.
Because
Yep.
who the hell will want their kids to suffer? Who
Just
will want
it.
to change schools, to leave home because they can't afford it, right? So keeping people's lifestyle the same is usually the right answer. Now, I have gotten responses where you're like, oh, okay, so he doesn't care or she doesn't care.
Yeah.
That happens. Usually when that happens, I close my pad and I'm like,
That's what you
Well,
just said outside.
I
He's like,
swear,
all right, well, this
just
guy.
before that, you just tell him,
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes
Yeah.
you just can't fix that.
can't
Let's
fix
leave
it.
it. Let's leave it
What-
at that.
What I found is that this type of stuff is, the word insurance, right? It scares people.
Mhm.
Oh, it's a gimmick, but think about it. You insure your car, you insure your home. Some people
It's like I'm
insure
talking to myself.
some people insure their watches, their
Mhm.
jewelry. People insure their trips to the Bahamas,
Yep.
but they fail to do the most important thing, which
So
is insure
now
your income.
I think
Insure your
I think what
life
happens
and-
is that
and
there's a
your
lack
income.
of understanding as to the the purpose of insurance.
So
And there's different types of insurance,
Yes,
right?
that's only one
100%,
kind of
Yeah,
insurance.
that's only one
Yeah.
kind.
that's-
That's called what? Term, right?
well,
It's just life
Whole-
life
life
insurance,
insurance
life
in
insurance,
general.
term insurance.
Term-
yeah.
Term insurance is the cheapest. Look, and most people, the thing about now we're talking about the type of insurance, which I hate to do, right? Because
All right,
people
we
don't
won't talk about-
realize.
We got other stuff to talk about. If you don't want to talk about, we won't talk about.
I'll give you the high level on it. Term insurance is genuinely the best thing for young families who are just starting out. Nothing kills me more when I meet a young person who's just starting out, not making a whole lot of money, and somebody sold them, a big whole life policy that they can't really afford.
Got it.
The difference between term insurance and a permanent policy, whether it's whole life or universal life, it's the expense. Think of term insurance like renting, right? You pay, but you're insuring yourself for a period of either 5, 10, 15, 20, up to 30 years if you want, right? But
And the younger you get it, right, the
Oh, the-
cheaper it
the
is,
cheaper
right?
it is.
the younger
yeah.
you
So
are,
can,
the
what's
healthier
the
you are.
longest you can get of a term policy? 30
A
years?
true term policy, guaranteed level term policies, 30 years. for the
30
most
years,
part,
got it.
right?
I mean, it depends on the carrier. I've
Yeah.
seen some as much as 40 years.
Got it.
But for the most part, it's insurance for a set period of time.
Alright.
Yeah.
Right. And
Alright,
then
cool.
every insurance agent does it different based on their experience.
Yeah.
I'm not. We're not here to talk about me.
Yeah.
But everyone
No,
looks
please
at
tell
it
us.
differently. No. Everyone looks at it differently.
He loved it when he heard that you.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were
I-
talking
no,
about insurance. He was like,
Yeah, I was
"My
like,
God,
oh man,
I had
let's-
no
yeah.
clue."
I was excited to be able to
Yeah.
have this conversation. I definitely think it's something that we need to speak about. We need to speak about it in our communities. We should be talking about it at the dinner tables. We should be talking about it as often as we should, because not enough people think about it and think about the importance. So one of the things I wanted to get into, like with you specifically, is at least when I'm speaking to some families, right?
Sure.
I'll use my own example.
Right.
Is one of the objections that I get when it comes to insurance, specifically life insurance, is it's just another bill, and I don't want to add another bill. Now I know what my response is, but I want to hear what your response might be to that.
See, the problem, and here is the biggest reason why people put up objections.
Okay.
See, when you're selling insurance for the sake of selling insurance, right? It's hard because it does become a bill, right? But if you take a step back, what I said earlier, right? When you ask people the questions, what are your goals, dreams, and aspirations?
Mhm.
Get them to talk about that. Get them to talk about the home they're going to buy. Get them to talk about the vacation home, or get them to talk about the kids' education, even retirement for some people, right? Get them to feel what that future is going to feel like if they put the commitment to planning, right?
Mhm.
When people know what they're planning for, it's no longer about a bill, right? Because everything we do is about what type of commitment, right, is the individual willing to make to achieve those goals.
To protect the plan.
Protect the plan. Exactly. So when you build,
Protect the
you
plan.
build, right, a plan based on a person's wishes, wants, not wants, sorry, needs,
Mhm.
right? Because wants and needs are two very different things.
Absolutely.
When you build it on, when the foundation of the plan is about them, it's no longer about it's $100 or $200. It's about, well, if you're making a commitment of saying, so we call that a money commitment, right?
Mhm.
And the way we approach it, or we achieve the money commitment conversation, is really, okay, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client, or usually husband and wife, right? You're making 200,000, you're paying, 40,000 in taxes. That leaves you with a net of 160, right? You're spending, right? And here is where the caveat comes in, right? Because most people, if they're not used to saving, right? You know where I'm going with this. I told you at the beginning of the podcast, you should be saving 15 to 20%,
Mhm.
right? So let's just go on the high end. 20% of 200 is $40,000. I don't know very many people who are making 200 and saving 40, because that would mean they're saving 100% of what they need to be saving, which is 20%. And I'm not saying that I don't never meet people. I do meet people. But if you can get people to commit to what they should be saving, right?
Mm.
Part of that commitment is to protect the overall plan you're doing,
Mhm.
right? So if you're saving 40,000, maybe $38,500 is for the bigger goal, which is a second home or retirement, a college education. A little piece of that is to protect the plan. It no longer becomes about, oh, it's $150 a term. No, screw that. It's your commitment to the plan, it's your commitment to your goals, dreams, and aspirations.
Well, I think what happens is that, like, the more money you make, the more you want to elevate your lifestyle, right?
Yes.
More money, more
And
problems.
everyone, and it's perfectly fine. Like, I mean, we all suffer from that, right? We make more money, we want bigger cars, we want to get the extra house, we want to do different things, right?
Yes.
Again, I think outside of saving the 10, 20, 15%, 15, 10, 15,
15
20%,
to 20.
right? Like, it's important, like you said. I think the most important thing is to at least preserve the lifestyle that you've worked so hard to build.
Right.
So let's just say you don't save a dime and every nickel
Let's
you
hope
make
not.
goes out the window.
Right.
At the minimum you could do is protect what
Right.
you've already
At least
built, what
the
you've
break-
already
yeah.
done, right? So at least, you know what? We're not passing go. At least we have this, and we're all good.
Right.
Now, Jeff, getting into a different type of conversation here, right? Because part of our audience, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of partners out there. And I have a lot of different conversations out there with different people. I mean, it's happened to me personally in business partnerships, as you know.
Sure.
You get screwed sometimes, or
Yes.
you don't plan, or you don't
Mhm.
think, or you're not really aware of what can potentially happen.
Or you
And
don't
a lot
plan
of people,
for the unthinkable.
a lot of people leave themselves
right.
exposed, right?
Yep.
They fail to execute operating agreements. That's a different conversation. But there are different things that are critically important to a business partnership, right?
Yes.
That you
Yes.
can speak to, that can theoretically also
Yeah, so
insulate.
we work, our team works with a lot, I would say 60, maybe 70% of the people we work with are business owners of
business
some
owners,
sort.
okay.
So, one of the first things we ask when we meet with a business owner, whether they've been in business for 30 years or 3 months, right? Is, do you have an operating agreement and do you have a buy-sell agreement?
Got
Right.
it. So operating agreement and
Buy-sell
buy-sell
agreement.
agreement.
And I won't talk about the operating agreement too much,
Yeah.
but the buy-sell agreement is critical, right? Because again, when it comes to protecting your assets, your wealth, and your business interest, right? A buy-sell agreement protects you for a couple of reasons. And the most important one is, again, going back to that God forbid question, right? What happens if if you pass away, right? So in a scenario where, let's say, the three of us are partners, right? And we own a company,
I could see that.
A-
Raise and
ABC.
raise.
ABC company,
Okay.
and we're very
That's okay.
successful.
You just dropped him from the company.
Wow, that's awful.
Hey,
It's
Velastic is too long. Last name's too long.
No, it's okay. It's all right, bud. So let's say we're business partners, and we own a third of a business, a third, right? And we all work really well because we stay in our lane. We know what we do, right? We're really good at what we do, right? We're making a lot of money. God forbid something happens to one of us. If we don't have a buy-sell agreement that says, hey, what should happen upon the death or disability, right? Because we haven't talked about disability, right? But what happens if one of the partners dies or becomes disabled? So let's just talk about the death part, right? Without a buy-sell agreement, automatically, my wife, let's just say that I'm the one that dies, my wife now just becomes your partner because she gets the shares of that, of that I
Your
own.
shares, your
my
third,
share. That
yeah.
she gets my third of the business, and now you have a new partner, and her name is Pam. She's super talented, very
Pam is great.
smart,
She's very smart.
smarter than I am,
Yeah.
infinitely, but she has no idea how to do what we do. So you guys are good guys, right? But let's pretend that you're not for a moment. How do I know that my interest in the business that we've built is properly paid for to my family? Right? You
Can
might tell me the business is worth $1 million, but we know that the business is worth 10. Now this is if you guys are acting in bad faith, right? And I'm not saying you guys, but that's what happens.
It does happen in business.
That happens in
unfortunately.
business.
Yeah.
Or,
And businesses' valuations change,
yeah.
right? Like they
so
change.
a buy-sell agreement says, typically would dictate that if in the event of the death of a partner, you have to get a valuation. And sometimes it'll say get 3 valuations, right? And you take the average of the 3.
Average of the 3.
Right? And when you take the average of the 3, that's what that person is due. The agreement will also say, hey, that doesn't, let's just say it's a large number, 3, 4, 5, $10 million. It doesn't all have to be done at once, right? I've seen scenarios where there's like a an initial payment and a down payment upon death, and then the balance can be paid over the course of 3, 5, or 10 years. But life insurance plays a critical role in that because it allows the liquidity to exist. Right now, most businesses that I know of, when I'll ask the question, well, look, you have a thriving business, but if you needed to come up with $3 million or $5 million to buy out your partner, do you have it? They'll look at each other and say, no, we don't have $5
It's
million.
usually invested in equipment,
Yeah.
infrastructure,
Sure, because
whatever's
to
needed.
growth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I see
Most-
it all the time.
Most business owners that I know, they reinvest 100% of what they have back into the business, and that's usually their biggest asset,
Yep.
right? So again, you want to protect
Besides themselves.
Yeah, besides themselves,
Besides-
right?
besides
And then
themselves.
so now I'll give you another example under the same kind of umbrella of what we're talking about. Let's pretend that I don't die. And this applies too for the personal planning, not
Mhm.
business owners. It's disability insurance, right?
Mhm.
What happens if I become disabled, either because of an accident or a stroke or whatever, and I'm no longer who I am today? I'm a vegetable.
Mhm.
I can't even wipe my own butt, and that's sad, right? Because number one, I in my personal opinion, getting to a stage where you're disabled is worse than dying because I get to watch my family suffer.
Mhm.
A disability insurance policy will replace my income in the event that I can earn it. Going back to
Mhm.
that machine, right? If that button breaks, I want somebody to be there within 24 hours to fix that button so that machine keeps giving me money.
Mhm.
That's what disability insurance does in the event that somebody gets hurt or sick and they can't generate the income that they were before. So in a business, in a business setting, right, with the buy-sell agreement, it'll also dictate what happens in the event that one of the partners becomes disabled, for how long, right? Because you guys are good guys, you might say, hey, look, we'll just keep paying them for the next year or two. But let's say 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, how long will you continue to pay me my third
Exactly.
before you start feeling, hey, we're good guys, but we're not stupid? So it not only protects the person who God forbid dies or becomes disabled, but it also protects you guys, right? Or the other partners, the surviving, thriving partners, from having to get stuck in a bad deal.
So let's talk a little bit about because I want to make sure that this part is clear. The buy-sell agreement type of life insurance, it protects your interest in the business, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your own individual life insurance separate from the business. Is that correct?
Yeah, generally yes, there's personal planning and business planning, and people fail to do both, right? And they're not mutually exclusive of one another, right? Because when we do personal planning for people, we want to make sure that yes, that's covered and protected. We look at a business inside of a personal plan. We look at a business as an asset,
Okay.
right? An asset that's generating income. So we replace the income from on the personal side. But if the business is worth, say $10 million or $9 million, let's make the math easy because I'm not great at math. It's 3 million a piece. I want to make sure that, hey, not only is my income going to be replaced, but the asset of $3 million is also going to be replaced for my family, because I want to make sure that you guys keep doing business and making money. I just want my wife out because you don't want her as a partner because she'd be your boss.
I like Pam. I'll
Yeah.
take Pam.
She
Listen,
I
after
haven't had the pleasure of
COVID,
meeting her, but she sounds amazing.
listen,
amazing.
she's awesome. Look,
Oh
yeah,
my
after
God.
COVID,
She's
she quit her job as a school administrator,
Yeah.
and she helped me, run operations at my firm and all the other things that we do on the side, and it's really it's a great partnership.
So-
Shout out to Pam, by the way.
Shout out
She's
to
probably one of the
Dr.
most
Pam.
Dr. Pam. She's a
Dr. Pam,
doctor. I mean,
okay.
she
Dr. Pam.
literally is very educated,
Yeah,
but she's so humble about it, and she's just amazing. So Pam,
she just
We
beats
love
me
you.
up. At
So
home.
you mentioned
Um,
you started your firm prior to COVID, right?
Yeah, in
So
2019.
in 2019. So like
That was the
I
idea.
feel like a lot of people like started their businesses like right before COVID, and then of course COVID happened. And how did that impact you? How did you survive COVID? And where are you now in terms of like growth, business, and
The years after COVID were probably one of the best few years I had in
Okay.
the industry. Uh, you know, it was just the type of type of planning we do for some of our clients. It didn't really impact them so much
Okay.
with COVID, right?
Awesome.
People
Okay.
people figured out a way to make money, and I mean, look, I know people in my industry that left the industry because they weren't making enough money. But because of our approach and what we do and how we do it, right? We know that there's always look, we grind just like you guys. I mean, you guys grind. You go find it, right?
Have
So
to.
we that's what we did. I have a team of of people that know what they're doing. They're good at what they do, and we all play our role, right? It's a team. It really is a. We always look for a win-win-win scenario. It's never about how do I win and other people lose. It's so that's because of that
The
mentality and the
win-win.
sort of it's a win-win.
So in the spirit of protection,
Yeah.
right? And I think this is important because I see it a lot in real estate, specifically trusts, right? So I know that you're not an attorney and you're not, but I
Trust
know,
as in like legal trust. Okay,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So, but I know that you do use trusts in certain ways to protect assets, and
Yes.
part of what we promised our viewers was protecting.
Yeah.
So in what you hear a lot of things on social media being thrown around. Trust this, trust that, revocable. Sometimes people don't understand the severity, how it's really
living
supposed to help you.
wills and
there's
the
a lot of
differences
different
between
things.
all of them.
Yeah.
So yes, look.
And how they work
So
together.
before we talk about trust, let's talk about what I believe to be one of the most important documents you can have as a young family, as a young entrepreneur or business owner. It's a will,
Okay.
right? Because it's really the foundation to estate planning.
A will's the foundation to
To your
estate
estate
plan.
plan.
Right.
Got it.
And the reason I say that is because of something called intestacy laws in the state of New York. Not every state is a little bit different, right? In the state of New York, they have this thing called intestacy laws for people that don't have a will. And the reason why that's important to know, right, is because when somebody passes away, the way that assets pass to the next generation is through a deed, contract, will, or law. Now, the majority of people don't have wills. So that leaves you with a deed, a contract, or law.
Mm.
So what's a deed, right? A deed is what you have when you buy a home. When you buy a home, you buy it with your spouse. Like, for instance, Pam and I, we own our properties joint with rights of survivorship. What that means is that if I die, she gets it automatically.
Mhm.
Okay. Contract refers to things like retirement accounts. You have a beneficiary designation. Key tip for your listeners, right? Bank accounts. Most bank accounts don't have a beneficiary designation, but there's something called a transfer on death form. No, don't ask me why they call it something different, but most people, I would say 90% of people, don't assign a transfer of death on their bank accounts.
What
Right.
happens in that case?
Well,
I think it's important for folks to know that.
It is.
well, in that case, it's probate, right? It's until somebody reviews it and the court decides or the judge decides, that hey, that money belongs to your wife or spouse or surviving spouse. That's what happens.
In the
right?
meantime, you're waiting.
In the
until-
meantime, you're
the meantime,
waiting.
you're waiting,
And what
right.
the will does,
Okay,
correct me if I'm
right.
wrong, what the will does is now you are designating what happens to that instead of the courts.
Correct. Well,
Okay.
more importantly than that, let's take it one step back, right? In the absence of a will in the state of New York, what happens is that the first $50,000 you have and 50% of your assets go to your spouse. The other 50% go to your kids. That's what happens. Now, a lot of people might say, well, that's okay.
That's the law in New York.
That's the law in New
That's
York.
like, all right, no will. This is how it's naturally divided.
Right. It's 50,000 plus 50% to the spouse, 50%, the remaining 50% to the kids. Now, why is that a bad thing?
And that's cash and
All of it.
got it.
Oh, yeah. So somebody.
So now the kids are gonna get deeded on to the property they
Well,
own.
no.
Or
Not the
how's that
deed.
work?
Right. The deed is a deed.
Okay. So the deed is staying. So you got your wife's got joint
50%
tenants
of the
with rights
Rights
of
of
survivorship.
survivorship.
So she keeps half of the house, obviously.
Yep.
So now the kids get the wife gets the 50,000 in liquid assets.
kids get a split of the remaining 50%.
Yeah. Well, whatever that is. If you have,
Whatever it is.
if you have other assets that aren't designated by a beneficiary account or
Okay.
a contract, that's what gets split. Real estate that's owned in corporations, perhaps.
Got it.
Is
Okay.
so it's scary because
Yeah, I mean, that's tough.
for a couple of reasons, right? Let's say you have young kids.
Mhm.
Now, because you have young kids and you don't have a will, now you go back to the mercy of the court to say, hey, the assets that would have normally have gone to your spouse are now going to be held in trust for the benefit of your kids. So now your spouse doesn't technically have assets to them because those assets aren't hers.
So
What makes it even more scary is that, let's just say that, hey, you have 2 kids, they're young, they're never really understood the value of working, and now when they turn 18 or when they become an adult, they now have access to those assets.
Mm-hmm.
So now think about yourselves. I'll think about myself and I'll tell you, hey, if I would have received $1 million when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I would have probably have made bad decisions in my life, right?
I would say yeah. It's
And
probably safe to
so
assume
the
that.
so the problem is with these trusts will, they will be protected, and the court will assign someone that will, they will assign a trustee, typically the spouse. But once those kids become of age, those assets will go to them, and there's no ifs or buts about what the
Mhm.
surviving parent says. Now, that's a big problem, because if the spouse was relying on some of those assets to survive, right?
yeah, you need to
you
live,
need
right?
to
The
live.
kid,
Exactly.
let's say the
Yeah.
kid's 13, 12,
Yeah.
13 years old, right? They
And-
need to get to
Yeah,
18.
and don't get me wrong, the trust is there to provide for the kids for
Protect,
anything,
correct, yeah.
health, education,
Yeah.
maintenance, support, and etc. But so again, before we start talking about trust, I like to talk about a will, right? Because the will is going to save you a lot of headaches.
Okay.
It's going to save you a lot of money, right? Because of probate. I've heard stories of probate taking 6 months, 9 months,
Yeah, no,
years.
it takes a long time, especially
And
real
it's-
estate. So you would suggest, not to detract, so you would suggest the first step ahead of anything else is to designate a will.
So,
Yeah,
but
well,
Okay.
before we get
the
to
first
that,
step is
who needs a will?
I would say everybody needs a will,
Okay, fair
especially
enough.
especially if you're I'll give you another reason why it's important to have. Has nothing to do with money.
Okay.
Okay, and my wife and I have had somewhat of a fight, right? Not a fight, discussions, heated, and over the years it has changed. But when you have young kids, and let's say you have no money and you have young kids, something happens to you, the two parents, and the kids are alive. Who gets the kids?
Exactly.
Mm.
And so the reason I asked that question is sometimes folks think about a will in terms of like their value in terms of money and not necessarily everything else. So that's specifically why I asked the question, because I want to make sure people understand is that if I understand what you're telling me is that in reality everyone should have a will
Yeah,
for the most part.
for the most part. I mean,
Yeah.
look, it's just a good.
It's good practice.
Look, it's just what I talked about earlier, right? The foundation of a good plan starts with protecting a few things, right? So protecting your income is one thing, but at the end, but in addition to that, is having those legal documents like a will, power of attorney or medical proxy. Those are ancillary documents that come with a last will and testament. And I would urge people, for the love of everything that's holy, don't ever get stuff from Zoom in legal,
No rocket lawyer.
don't rocket lawyer
Rocket
stuff.
lawyer.
Listen,
No offense to rocket lawyer, anyone that
Rocket
uses
lawyer,
it.
no, and look, and it's okay to a certain extent, but for the average
I
person,
mean, does it depend on the complexity? Like, I think
yeah, the
that's what it
complexity of
is.
the person,
The
yeah,
complexity is important,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and the thing is that I see people that should, spend the extra little bit of money and go talk to a trust and estate attorney.
So it sounds like, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, you took the time to lay out a plan, and these documents help protect the plan.
Yes, yeah. And look, and that's kind of a cornerstone of our planning approach, right? Because I you know, I don't know if I came up with this, but it sounds good. But we take a three-dimensional approach to
Okay.
planning, right?
Okay.
And the reason I call it a three-dimensional approach is because we look at things from three perspectives: financial, legal, and accounting, right? Because everything about your life, has an impact on, whether you buy insurance, whether you buy an asset. Your that three-dimensional approach is, we take a look at everything and what the impact of a death of one of the spouses, would happen, right? And there's it all three components are important to making sure that you have a sound plan, right? So anytime we meet with people, we want to make sure that yes, you have the financial products to protect your income, but also the legal documents that are going to make sure that what you want to happen and what will happen are one and the same.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, is come up with a plan first of all, and then work towards protecting that plan.
Yes, there's a lot. There's a lot of layers to this.
Absolutely,
Planning is not
100%.
easy, and look, and it's not a one and done. A last one and tell. Look, the legal documents is something that can be done over and over and over. I have a client who redoes his will every couple of years because he fights with a grandchild, fights with a child.
You're out of the will.
You better be good to grandpa.
So, but for the most part, look, the critical components to planning, right? And really quickly, I'll touch on the other documents that I mentioned. Power of attorney is a document that allows someone that you designate, typically a spouse, to make legal decisions if you're unable to do so, right? And then there's the medical proxy, the health care proxy, that again, if you're unable to make decisions for yourself, that you're designating someone to make health decisions about your life. And then living will is, do I want to be kept alive if I'm a vegetable? Do you want to pull the trigger? Not the trigger, pull the plug. One and the same. But bottom line is, it doesn't stop at the insurance. It doesn't stop. That's why I call it a journey. It's not a one and done. So when we work with clients, it's a process, right? It's tell me your goals, tell me your dreams. I'll tell you how to get there. And it's not going to be easy, right? Because again, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's sacrifice, right? Everybody has to sacrifice, because the sacrifice I'm asking you and the audience, right, is going to be it's a sacrifice that is going to prevent you from spending money today so that 65-year-old Raphael can have what he wants. Yes. And what is financial independence, right? Financial independence for me, it's the day that I wake up to go to work because I love what I do, not because I have to. How many people, right, do you know that still working in their 70s because they didn't save enough?
Unfortunately, it's something I see every day.
They don't do it because they love to do it.
And
maybe some of them do. I do have clients that work in their 70s and 80s because they love it. But you know what? They're on top of the world. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, no, I think, look, I think the conversation took a lot of different spins, but ultimately there's a lot of value here. I know Jeff charges a lot of money to meet with people just to evaluate their situation. And we just got all that basically, at no cost, which is awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And I actually learned a lot, and he's one of my good friends, and we talk about a lot of different things, but in this environment, I think I really soaked it all in, and I got to make some adjustments. So, there's a lot of things, man. There's so many things,
and there's so much really more that I'm sure that you could get into. Unfortunately, we are, on a time.
Are we done?
We'll have him back.
I was about to can I ask for a refill? No. Definitely. Can I get a refill before we're done?
But what I would say is, is there, before, we kind of get into final thoughts and things like that, is there anything else that you want to share and get into, in addition to like how people can find you, of course, but anything else that we didn't get to cover just yet before we get into any final thoughts or anything like that? The time goes by quick.
Yeah, no, time does go. It does go by quick. Look, going back to the first thing you asked me, what do you say to a young 22-year-old who's just starting? You know what? Saving is a sacrifice. Get used to saving, because, if you can make the sacrifice early, when you get older, it becomes easier because you're used to doing it, right? That is a lesson that I learned very quickly, very early on in my life and career. I started this when I was 19 years old, right? So I had already made bad decisions by 19, but I was very fortunate to find the right people to show me the way, right? And I didn't wake up and just say, hey, I'm doing this, right? So yeah, I would say the final thoughts is have a plan. Get used to, and understand that the plan is going to take commitment, it's going to take effort, it's going to take sacrifice, but the sacrifice is worth it, right? But it's hard to say that, it's hard for 22 and 30-year-olds to see the sacrifice is going to pay off when you're, 30 years from now, right? So I would say planning is important. The sooner you start is critical. And just make sure that, that you're working with someone that's going to, look out for your best interest as opposed to theirs.
So my final thought or final question is, thinking about it in terms of a 22-year-old, 32-year-old, and a 42-year-old. Let's just say you came up with a plan at 22. I think it's okay, at least my understanding of everything that we discussed today, it's okay if your plan at 22 is not the same at 32 and 42 because things change. So the plan is not written in stone,
Yes.
but come up with at least a plan and work towards that and evolve as you go.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I apologize to cut in, but you're right. You can't expect a 22-year-old to come up with a 30-year plan because, again, I go back to people just don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
There's just so much. So what often happens, and you know what's wonderful, I do have my someone who works with like the younger clients that we have, and it's great because when we do fee-based planning, and the reason we do fee-based planning is because it's a journey, right? For financial planners, for the most part, who are working with young individuals, it's just not a lot of money to make, and everybody has to
Mhm.
make a living. We charge fees because we take you along with that journey. To us, it's not about what commission or what am I going to get paid in my first meeting you, but rather the journey that we're going to take together over the next 15 to 20 years. Most plans that we write, they get edited every year because everybody's situation changes from year to year. Your income goes up. You get a new job. Now you're making twice as much as you were making. Maybe you're moving. Now you're buying a home. So every single time your life changes, the plan changes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so-
And that's the thing, and I hate to interrupt. I mean, I want the audience to really understand this. There's a lot of financial planners out there that just pitch product, right?
Mhm.
And it's not a one size fits all situation. Just like mortgage guys, they pitch product, right? It's got to be unique to you. So sometimes you're better off getting a nice plan in writing and saying, here's whatever the fee is, and saying, okay, well, I'm set for the next 5 years, assuming I do this, and this is going to happen. And then I can go back and reevaluate the plan and make adjustments as I go. And the key is to constantly be reevaluating, right? Every 5 years, right?
Yeah.
You go, you come back, you decompress, you reevaluate. Okay,
Right.
I'm on track.
Mhm.
Oh wait, I need to go a little left. I need to go a little right.
Right.
You know?
No, and it's
So-
true. The reason we charge fees is because, again,
Well, and sometimes you don't have to, but what I'm saying is that
and we
there's
don't
a
always
different-
we don't
there's
always
different
charge
planners
fees
out there. Yeah,
we
you
don't
know,
always
yeah.
charge fees, but the reason we charge fees is because we never go into this is what can I sell this person. See, the problem with working with commission only advisors is you for the viewer, for the listener, right? And for the person who's having these questions, you have to ask yourself, if you're working with a commission only person, the only way that they make money is by selling you
Like
something.
telling
Yeah.
you something.
Going back to
Yeah.
the reason why you
Yeah.
say, "Oh no, I'm just looking," right?
Yeah.
To the Best Buy guy,
That's
right?
a great point.
Even though you want a TV, you just don't know how. You don't want to get sold.
Yeah.
It's the same concept when you're doing this.
And
That's why
I think part of that is the mystique of planning, because a lot of
Mhm.
people don't understand it. And number two, no one really knows if that product is appropriate for them. Like, who knows what the financial plan is making on the back
Yep.
end of that? And the person who's buying it doesn't even know what the outcome could be.
Mhm.
right.
Right. So I mean, I think this should be like a basic thing that they teach in like elementary school. Like
High
these
school,
are
for sure.
High school
or
for
whatever.
sure.
High school
Like
for
Yeah.
sure.
something
Yeah.
high school is called.
More
sorry.
than just balancing your
high
checkbook.
expectation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
exactly.
Listen, when you graduate college and you get your first job, life becomes real.
No,
I guess the word of advice or financial tip, it's simple.
that one was
Don't
free.
spend don't spend more than you make. If you make 100, don't spend 100. Keep in mind,
It's even worse
I-
when you make
yeah.
100 and you spend 105.
Yeah, and so what I said earlier, right? The formula for us is very simple: 15 to 20%, 25 to 30 years gets you to significant financial independence. See, some of my best clients has nothing to do how wealthy they are. Some of my best clients and stories are people who are regular teachers and
Working class
just
people, it
working
sounds
class
like.
people
Okay.
Mhm.
where I met them 20 something years ago, and they followed the advice, and then 20 years later, actually one of them retired 3 years earlier.
Nice.
Compounded returns.
Nice.
And they really were like, we wouldn't have been able to do this had we not. And they were, if I say save 1,000, they'd save 1,200. They were so committed to the plan.
Nice.
And
I
it was
love
so
that. I
it
love
was so
hearing that.
amazing to be able to see. And for me, it's so rewarding, right? To me, that's the reward. I get a high off of seeing people achieve those goals. I get emotional even. I full disclosure, when she called me and saying, I think we're going to retire, I feel like we can do it. Can you confirm? And I'm like, yeah, you can. And it was like we had
Nice to
we
hear
had
that.
a
Sick.
good. And you know what? They literally sailed into the sunset. I won't say names, but their idea was like, hey, we have a boat. We're going to retire. We're going to sail from dock to dock, and they
Sick.
travel.
I
They,
love
That's the
hearing those
dream.
types of
so,
stories. That is a dream.
but these people were not, they weren't killing it. They were just normal working class people. And so the
So-
key to that is it has nothing to do with how much you make. It's what you do with the money you keep.
Awesome. So tell me, how do people find you? Like, where do they find you? Share that information, whether it's social media, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, my my website is legacygroup.ny.com.
Okay.
That's the best way. I don't really, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Jeff Velastegui, the Legacy Group.
The legacy group
The
is
Legacy
the way
Group.
to
The
go.
Legacy. Yeah, if you go to my website, the Legacy, the Legacy Group, not the, but it's the Legacy Group,
Legacy Group.
ny.com.
Okay.
As you
Oh,
can see, like,
beautiful.
he was obviously not coming here to pitch anybody. He just
No,
came here to share
no.
Yeah,
information.
no, I
Yeah,
He's
I
appreciate
was
probably
not-
it.
one of the
Yeah.
most,
I
I-
love
yeah.
hearing
one
it,
of the
man.
most
Thank you.
very
Thank you
humble
so much.
people
We
that I
do
know.
we
and
do
he-
just I will say a little bit, we do have a bunch of seminars, we do
There you
webinars
go,
to
that's
educate
perfect.
people.
Awesome.
So if you go to our website, we should have some information. Not yet, but we will have soon some information. We're just starting our kind of
So legacy group.
The Legacy
Awesome.
Group, right?
The legacy group.
Yes, the Legacy Group.
The legacy group. Got it. All right.
It will pop
Any
it in the
other
description
final
of
thoughts?
everything.
Anything else that you want to add?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. This was a lot of fun, much more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Awesome. Awesome, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And
You did
and
good, bro.
Ray,
Thanks,
Jelly,
Appreciate it.
Jonathan, we missed you. And for all of our listeners, a couple of things that I want to share. Know that you are your most valuable asset and protect that plan. Come up with a plan and then work towards protecting that plan. You got anything else, Raph?
Listen. I mean, I learned a lot today. I mean, to be honest with you, like I say, he's one of my best friends. We talk a lot, and we need to really constantly be reevaluating our direction in life. And these are great conversations to have.
Jeff,
So hope
anything
the
else,
viewers
man?
got everything back.
Again, it starts with a plan, and it starts with just thinking of, spend more time thinking about your future and not the Puerto Rico trip you're going to take.
Awesome.
I love
Industry
Puerto
Talk.
Rico.
Like, follow, subscribe, and we out.
Let's go.